Hey, what's going on? Jake here with Uncommon EDC. Today we're checking out the Mikov Kostka, an interesting knife coming out of the Czech Republic and from a brand I've never heard of before. But looking at the box, it looks like they've been around since 1794, so I'm sure there's a lot of history there that I'm unaware of. I did look them up and find that they have some really interesting knife designs, so may check out more of them in the future. I discovered this one though through one of Knife Center's new Knife of the Week videos. Unfortunately, when I clicked on their link, it was already sold out. And so after shopping around a little bit, I found it at Blade Ops, went ahead and ordered it. As I'm recording this video, it is still in stock at Blade Ops, so that's what I'm going to link to down in the description. But you can grab this for $39.95, so really budget-friendly knife overall and super interesting one. Now, I don't usually look at the packaging unless there's something interesting about it that's worth looking at. And for this one, it's just that it's so unassuming. It doesn't look like a knife box at all. It looks like something you might find hanging from the shelf at your local tool store. And so that's interesting. It has a good illustration here to get an idea of what this knife is like, and kind of looks like a balisong here, although it doesn't quite operate like a balisong, but in the closed position, just unassuming metal rectangle. And if we flip over to the back, we'll see a little bit of information about this knife design in several different languages, one of them being English. And so it says N.I. Kostka, or the cube knife. So I'm assuming that's a direct translation. I'm guessing Kostka means cube. And it says an elegant knife of an original design and opening mechanism. At first sight, the unique design solution of the knife looks like an interesting brain teaser. Double flipping the stainless steel handles by 180 degrees opens the knife. Not only ladies will appreciate the practical opening the knife by flipping, which doesn't cause any stressing or damaging the fingernails. Thought that last bit was interesting. Obviously, sentence structure-wise, a little bit might have gotten lost in translation, but clear what they were trying to say. And the reason I thought that was kind of interesting is when I saw this knife, nothing about it screamed that it would be more appealing to ladies than men or vice versa. It really seems like a pretty universal knife. So that was interesting. You can see the blade material here, 440A with a 55 to 57 heat treat. So we'll get that out of the way, take a look at the knife itself. And just like I said in the picture, kind of an unassuming metal rectangle. Nothing about this screams knife to you. It's also pretty small, a little bit smaller than maybe I expected initially. In this closed position, we're looking at 3.15 inches and no immediate obvious way to open it. I wouldn't say it's really a brain teaser because there's only one way to open it, and you can see it after just glancing at it for a second. So one of these folded pieces of metal is inside the other. If you push the interior one out to the side, it will start to pivot out. Pivot it the full 180 degrees, and you get here, pivot 180 degrees in the opposite direction, and it fully deploys that blade, creates a rectangular handle just like in the closed position, and about the same dimensions there, 3.15 inches of handle. And so pretty small knife overall at 5.55 inches, so just a hair over 5.5 inches. The handle at 3.15 inches is pretty comfortable. It's a little bit slick, so not something that I'd necessarily want to be using with wet hands, but otherwise comfortable, no immediate hot spots. Can get most of my four fingers on there. That pinky does tend to fall off. One thing that was kind of surprising for me in this open position is that the handles don't really move around in your hand. If you have it out like this, you can kind of jiggle it back and forth a little bit, but just kind of shaking it by holding either of those sections, it's not going to move. Once you close your hand up, the handle is locked in, the blade is locked in, there's no play whatsoever, front to back, side to side. So really nice lockup for a knife that has no lock or even a spring to support it. It locks up nicely, and that's all down to how they design this. They put the right amount of, I guess, tension on that pivot where it's not going to shake, but it's also really easy to move. It's not like you have to struggle to really get it to move along. Has a 2.4 inch blade, so not a huge blade. It is very slim, and so I think this knife would lend itself really well to an office or executive type knife where in that closed position it's pretty unassuming. No one would think that you have a knife there, and even in the open position with this high polished finish on both the handle and the blade, pretty classy looking knife. It's also not that large, and so I think would be great in that type of environment, especially for opening envelopes and that sort of thing. Does great for like utility cuts and stuff like that with that clip point style blade. And then again, being super slim, you can slide it into those envelopes, cut them open, and makes a really nice letter or envelope opener. In terms of billboarding branding on here, we just have the Mikov logo right there on the blade, otherwise completely sterile, which again kind of classes it up really nicely. Now that mirror polish is a fingerprint magnet, but it kind of just accumulates fingerprints so much that they start to blend in with each other. But if that's something that drives you crazy and you're constantly going to need to wipe it off, that may be a little bit of a deterrent there. Does come with a nice edge on that 440A stainless, and again, clip point style blade. One thing I wanted to look at with this blade is I really like the angle that they took with it. So it's kind of offset from any of the four edges of the handle. And that's an important thing too for that lockup that I mentioned earlier, is that when you're cutting with this, the pressure isn't being applied on either of those pivots, because this knife, unlike most knives which have one pivot, this one actually has two different pivots, and with no lock or spring to hold them in place, if the pressure was in line with either of those pivots, it would most likely start to close on you when you made your cuts. But because of that downward angle and that's offset from all four edges, you don't have that problem. I also think it just looks really cool the way the knife ends in that kind of angle on all four sides there. So it just makes it kind of a cool looking feature as well. Overall, I think this is a really interesting knife. I think it would also make a really interesting pen design. Don't know if there are already pens out there that have this design, but I think this would be a really cool kind of miniature pen that turns into a full-size pen. So something for them to think about, I guess, if they ever see this video. I know they said it's an original knife design. I don't know if they have patents on it or anything like that, but yeah, definitely would be cool to see them use this to maybe apply it to other types of applications. I don't know what else, but could do a screwdriver in there, or maybe even a bit driver. It might be a little bit small for a bit driver, but you can scale that up obviously, and so would be interesting to see them come with some other designs. Now to close it, exact same thing. You do have to make sure that it's in line there before you start folding, so you're not touching that blade at all, but really doesn't feel unsafe in any way. It's pretty easy to get everything lined up, and as long as you're paying attention, shouldn't have any issues with that. But would love to know your thoughts on this one down in the comments. Is this something you would purchase, something you would carry, what you would use a knife like this for? Definitely think this will probably be one that ends up in one of the future weird knife compilation videos that I've been doing. I think it's just such a unique and innovative deployment method and lockup method, and that's something I always enjoy quite a bit. But thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider liking, commenting, subscribing, or joining the channel as a member. All help the channel out a ton, and as always, I hope you have a great one. Take care.